The engine hadn't even cooled when the kid blocked our driveway and slammed his Gucci-ringed fist on the hood of my wife's Mustang. "This car is mine now," he declared like some cliché copyright D villain straight out of a bad movie. "Who says that? You owe the community a favor. Consider this your donation," my wife Lisa said, blinking once before sizing him up calmly. "Ever driven something that bites back harder than your mom's golf cart?" Right then, I knew we were in for trouble. What he didn't realize was Lisa's day job, test driving NASCAR machines hitting 200 miles per hour, and that Mustang, not just a flashy red convertible, it was a street-legal beast with a race car's soul, and now some kid in loafers had declared war on it. The irony was thick, like smoke drifting from a burnout. When we moved here 2 years ago, the home-managed suburb seemed like a peaceful cul-de-sac oasis. Lisa and I, both high-stress professionals, wanted a quiet spot to unwind. Instead, we found a clique of homeowners who treated rule enforcement like a pastime. Still, we minded our business, paid dues, mowed the lawn, and kept polite smiles. That all changed when Chadwick Tanner 4 showed up like some social media influencer who thought real life had a comment section. His parents just moved into the corner lot, bringing along their entitled teen who made trust fund kids seem humble. Chadwick wasn't just any neighborhood teen. He crowned himself prince of the community. He cruised around in a slick black BMW coupe, probably worth more than my first house, treating the neighborhood like his personal runway. Rumor had it his mom even used home money to repaint the community sign because Chadwick didn't like the colors. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised. With his overpriced sneakers and a following of teens filming his every word for TikTok, he had the vibe of someone who never heard the word no, thriving on likes and luxury. It all kicked off at the neighborhood car meet, a casual gathering of gearheads in the community center parking lot once a month. No rules, just a chance to share our rides. Lisa rolled in, her freshly waxed '69 Mustang convertible humming like thunder. Heads turned, neighbors clapped, and Chadwick looked at her like she'd landed a spaceship. He strutted over in his designer hoodie and announced, "Sweet ride, I want it." Not joking. "Name your price," he added, like everything had a price tag. Lisa just smiled and no teeth showing. "She's not for sale, everything's for sale," he shot back. "And the HOA owes me for the damage I took last month. This will cover it." We thought he was joking until the home meeting. Chadwick's mom, who also happened to be HOA president, brought it up under community obligations. She suggested Lisa offer the Mustang for community use or as reparations since Chadwick's car got a minor scratch at a previous HOA event. "It's only fair," she insisted. "We all sacrifice for the neighborhood." The room went silent. One guy coughed. Lisa sat perfectly still, like a driver waiting for a green light. Then, in a voice colder than the Mustang's air intake, she said, "When your son qualifies for a race license and learns what a clutch does, he can test drive it on a simulator." That should have been the end, but Chadwick wasn't used to hearing no, especially not publicly. The next morning, he was outside our house with 2 of his followers filming Lisa's Mustang. "About to be mine. Stay tuned," he declared to his online fans, then slapped a sticky note on the windshield, "Reserved for Chad." I peeled it off and tossed it in the trash. He posted about that too, calling us uncooperative boomers. I'm 38. Tensions didn't ease. Chadwick's mom sent us a formal letter demanding we appear before the HOA to resolve an ownership misunderstanding. Lisa framed the letter and hung it in the garage. Meanwhile, the Mustang got a new alarm system with motion sensors and a GPS linked to her phone. Without a word, she also upgraded the tires. When I asked why, she just smirked. "Stupid moves move fast, and I move faster." What Chadwick didn't know, what almost nobody did, was Lisa's real job. By day, she was a vehicle performance engineer, but behind closed doors, she was test driver for some of America's fastest machines. Her weekends weren't for book clubs or brunch, but for pushing prototype NASCARs to their limits on private tracks. That Mustang wasn't just a weekend cruiser, it was her therapy and mechanical playground. Its engine bay packed more power than most could handle. The clutch could snap ankles, and the fuel blend, let's just say it wasn't your average pump gas. Then came the drive-by confrontation. We were heading to breakfast when Chadwick swerved into our driveway, boxed us in, and jumped out like he was starring in a music video. GoPro strapped to his chest, sunglasses too big for his face. He grinned and said, "Give me the keys." Last chance. Lisa just killed the engine and stared at him like he was roadkill. "You ever raced anything that doesn't have valet mode?" she asked. He blinked. "You won't even get it into second." Then she drove off. Lisa glided around him so smoothly, Chadwick didn't even realize she'd moved until she was halfway down the block. That clip went viral, but not for the reasons he hoped. Instead, people started tagging him as Convertible Chad. Memes popped up overnight. One showed him holding Lisa's car keys photoshopped into a pacifier. Another had him edited into a NASCAR pit crew member crying. Later that day, Chadwick and his crew parked across the street for hours, just watching and filming. Lisa didn't even glance their way as she stepped out of the car. She knew exactly what was coming next. So did I. Because kids like Chadwick don't just get mad, they get entitled. They don't back down, they escalate, and this time, they were about to mess with the wrong woman. Stealing someone's car is one thing, but going after a NASCAR test driver's machine? That's the kind of mistake that becomes neighborhood legend. Chadwick didn't show his face for 2 full days after Lisa's viral clip, a clip where she roasted him using nothing but a gear shift and a smirk. But his silence wasn't surrender, it was a tactical retreat. We underestimated just how deep his ego ran and how far he'd go to get back what he thought was owed. Lisa had seen this arrogance before, just never wrapped in flip-flops and a Rolex. The first sign came on a Thursday morning. Our mailbox was stuffed with glossy flyers featuring Chadwick posing in front of Lisa's Mustang like it was already his. The text read, "Community Cruiser, returning this classic ride to its rightful public use, sponsored by the Tanner family and your whole leadership." The audacity was so bold it almost felt like a joke, but what made Lisa narrow her eyes wasn't the photo, it was the watermark at the bottom. Approved community campaign. Chadwick had actually used HOA funds to print and distribute propaganda claiming her car as community property. We confronted the HOA board. Lisa slapped the flyer on the table and said flatly, "So whose idea was it to launch a hostile takeover on private property?" The president, Chadwick's mother, of course, tried to brush it off. "It's just community engagement. Lisa, let's not blow this out of proportion. The car was never officially registered with the HOA for residential inventory, so technically there's room for interpretation under our shared access guidelines." Lisa stared her down. "The only thing this car shares is rubber with the road." One of the newer board members tried to speak up, but got shut down with a glare from the president. Back home, things escalated. Chadwick started posting Instagram stories with poll questions like, "Should I paint the Mustang midnight black or keep it red? And what should I name her?" Lisa even messaged him once, short and to the point, "Touch the car and it'll be the last ride you ever sit in with leather seats." He reposted her message, captioning it "Boomer Rage," complete with laughing emojis. Comments on his post were mixed, some kids egging him on, others warning him to back off before he ended up grounded until college. Then came the real stunt. It was past midnight when my phone buzzed with a sensor alert. I checked the driveway camera and saw 3 figures creeping toward the car. Chadwick was leading, holding something that looked like a phone app controller. The other 2 carried tools. I woke Lisa. She didn't even blink. She grabbed her phone and pulled up the Mustang's remote access panel for the modified systems. When the car's alarm triggered, it didn't just beep, it growled. The custom speaker system blasted an engine rev loud enough to rattle windows. A smoke flare shot from the rear exhaust like a warning shot. The boys screamed and scattered, tripping over our flower bed on the way out. Lisa settled back in bed, pulled the covers up, and said, "They're lucky I didn't hit ignition override. Would have rolled the front axle forward 6 inches and clipped his designer loafers." The next morning, I forwarded the footage to the HOA with a formal complaint. Lisa included a note demanding the entire board be educated on laws about attempted theft and private property. Instead of apologizing or addressing the issue, the HOA retaliated. That afternoon, we got a notice from the community enforcement liaison citing Lisa's car for non-standard upgrades and unregistered horsepower modifications. The letter sounded like it was written by someone who skimmed a car blog once and decided they were a mechanic. The penalty section claimed the car might be towed or impounded for safety evaluation. Lisa read it quietly, then said, So now they're using fake. They're resorting to fake regulations to steal what they couldn't get with lies and tantrums, Lisa said, and I nodded. They were desperate. Chadwick was an online joke by now, and the HOA was trying to clean up the mess the only way they knew, by flexing the tiny ounce of power they thought they still had. That evening, Lisa made a call, one I hadn't heard her make in over a year. It was to her crew chief at the NASCAR test facility. I only caught her side of the conversation. Yep, same car. Yeah, it's been kept tuned. No, it hasn't hit the track since last fall. I want to activate the transport team. Bring the kit. She hung up, looked at me, and said, "They want to play public relations? Let's give them a parade." 2 days later, a massive semi-truck rolled into the neighborhood, decked out in full NASCAR livery. The trailer read Performance Motors Testing Division. Residents gathered like it was a festival. HOA board members stood awkwardly on their lawns, pretending to understand what was happening. Out came not one, not two, but 3 customized Mustangs. One was Lisa's. The other 2 were track-modified variants, fully wrapped in sponsored decals. A crew of mechanics and pit techs, all in uniform, stepped out and started calibrating equipment right in front of our house. Chadwick stood at the end of the block, mouth agape. His cameraman started recording, but no one cared at all. Eyes were on the scene unfolding in our driveway. Lisa was already in her fire suit, helmet tucked under her arm, laughing with one of the pit techs like it was just another Tuesday. Then she turned to the crowd and said, "Since they want to question the safety of my car, I figured I'd let the experts take a look. And since they want to question my qualifications, I invited the people who actually write the rules." The whole leadership was speechless. Chadwick's mother looked like she was about to either cry or spontaneously combust. One of the mechanics began explaining telemetry calibration to a curious neighbor. Lisa walked over to the HOA president and handed her a printed packet titled Legal Precedent Regarding HOA Overreach and Vehicular Harassment. "Just thought you might want to read up before your next memo," she said politely. That night, the HOA group chat leaked. Screenshots showed board members furious about being dragged into Chadwick's mess. One threatened to resign if another bogus citation was issued. Another questioned why local media were suddenly asking about harassment of a NASCAR professional. Turns out one of Lisa's old colleagues had tweeted a photo of her standing next to the Mustang with the caption, "When HOA drama meets horsepower." It blew up fast. We didn't sleep that night, not because we were anxious, but because Lisa couldn't stop laughing. I told them to drop it. I warned them. But Lisa knew better than anyone. People like Chadwick don't listen until they lose something they thought was already theirs. He hadn't even started the engine yet, but he'd already triggered the ignition sequence of his own downfall. And in this race, he wasn't even qualified to start. If there was ever a moment Chadwick could have stopped, walked away, and salvaged what little dignity he had left, it was that morning after the NASCAR transport spectacle. But entitlement doesn't take breaks. Instead of backing down, he did what every arrogant teen with too much money and too few consequences does. He went bigger. This time, he tried to bury Lisa under a mountain of bureaucracy, completely unaware he just poked the one bear who kept her claws retracted out of courtesy. The next move came in an official envelope dropped into our mailbox, stamped with the HOA seal and labeled urgent. Inside was a formal cease and desist letter accusing Lisa of violating community safety standards by operating what they called an unlicensed, modified performance vehicle on residential property. They threw in references to engine noise disturbances, excessive horsepower, and non-regulated speed equipment. The language sounded legal, but it wasn't. It was a Frankenstein's monster cobbled together from traffic ordinances, motorsport forums, and probably a Wikipedia article on combustion engines. Lisa read it slowly, then set it on the counter like a soggy napkin. She wasn't angry, she was calculating. She didn't even call a lawyer. She didn't need to. Instead, she contacted her motorsports liaison and had the full modification logs, emission certifications, and street legal compliance paperwork shipped overnight. Then she scanned and submitted the entire packet to the HOA's compliance inbox along with a notice of her own. It stated clearly, continued harassment of her or her vehicle would be considered malicious interference with her professional work. Lisa made it clear her duties covered the same car, and any legal threats would be met with swift action. That shut down the email chain faster than a blown piston. But the HOA wasn't the real problem, it was Chadwick. The HOA were just the exhaust fumes, he was the engine. 2 days later, we were sitting on the porch drinking coffee when the screech of tires caught our attention. A black Range Rover came barreling around the bend, swerving wildly like a scene out of a movie chase. Chadwick was standing through the sunroof, one of his friends driving. They pulled up across the street and jumped out, cameras already rolling. Chadwick swaggered toward the Mustang, parked under its usual tarp. "Let's do this," he announced. "Final claim, I'm taking what should have been mine." Lisa stood up slowly. She said nothing. She walked over, tapped her phone, and the engine growled to life under the tarp. Chadwick froze. The sound was deep, low, and menacing, a war drum pounding. The Mustang inched forward just enough to startle him. His foot slipped, and he staggered back, falling onto the gravel. We thought that might humble him. Instead, it set off the worst tantrum yet. He scrambled up and shouted loud enough for the whole street to hear, "Fine, you want a challenge? Let's do it like men, you and me, a race, winner takes the car. You scared of a little competition?" Lisa didn't respond right away. She walked back to the porch, picked up her coffee, took a sip, and said, "When you can keep a car straight through turn 3 at 140 miles per hour, then we'll talk. Until then, go play with your simulator." But that wasn't the end. Later that day, Lisa got an email from a local private racetrack we'd visited once for charity. The subject read, "Race event confirmation." Inside was a full registration under her name for a one-on-one community challenge set for 2 weeks later, race sponsored by the HOA's Youth Engagement Committee. The opponent? Chadwick Danner 4. The registration had been submitted fraudulently using Lisa's name, email, and even the Mustang's van. It was sloppy, but bold. Lisa stared at the screen for a long moment, then burst out laughing. "He actually thinks he's going to steal the car in front of a crowd," she said. "He's not just entitled, he's cinematic." We contacted the track immediately and shut it down, but word had already spread. Chadwick had posted a custom video montage with drone footage of the neighborhood, slow-motion clips of him revving various cars, and sound bites of Lisa pulled out of context. The video ended with a dramatic shot of him standing next to a digital rendering of the Mustang, wrapped in matte black with his name on the side. The caption read, "The Mustang becomes mine, a HOA showdown of the year." I didn't know whether to be furious or impressed at his production quality. Lisa was already on the phone again. 3 days later, another transport arrived. Smaller, meaner, it carried a newer Mustang prototype designed for track performance and cornering trials, not just straight line speed. Lisa took it out for exactly 5 minutes. When she came back, she was smiling. "It's not about beating him," she said. "It's about erasing every illusion he has about what winning even looks like." With that, she decided to accept the challenge publicly, under one condition: if Chadwick lost, he'd wash every single car in the HOA community, every weekend for a month, on camera, wearing whatever outfit she chose. Chadwick agreed instantly, blinded by ego and unaware he was walking straight into a mechanical buzzsaw. The HOA board, desperate to shift the narrative from their failed legal battles, spun it into a community event, flyers, banners, even food trucks. Lisa kept her preparations minimal. She didn't need to train, she lived on the track, but she made one call that changed everything. She reached out to an old friend in local media and leaked the story, not the race, just the situation. A teenage HOA brat trying to challenge a professional. Within 2 days, the story had taken off. Several automotive YouTubers picked it up, and one even posted a reaction video to Chadwick's drone montage titled, "Rich Kid Challenges Real Racer and is Definitely Going to Cry." As race day drew closer, the whole neighborhood transformed. People hung up signs, and one house even made shirts that read Team Lisa. Chadwick doubled down. He ordered a custom tracksuit embroidered with his name in gold thread, rented a high-end Camaro, and flooded social media with daily countdown videos, each more obnoxious than the last. Lisa posted only once, a photo of her Mustang's dashboard with the engine glowing, captioned, "Let's ride." The night before the race, Chadwick threw down a final challenge with a live stream watched by over 1,000 viewers, most of them ready to roast him. Standing in front of his rented Camaro, he declared, "I take what's mine. I was born to drive. I'm not scared of some over-the-hill track lady. Let's see what she's got." Comments flooded in. "Midlife crisis meets mid-tier Camaro," one mocked. Another said, "Lisa's car has more experience than you do." That night, the neighborhood was quieter than usual. Lisa had checked every tire, every sensor, every bolt. She wasn't nervous, she was focused. When I asked what she was thinking, she smiled and said, "I just hope he wears something I can laugh at while he's holding that sponge." Ray stayed dawned with a sun that seemed to know something big was about to happen. By 7 a.m., the private track, located 30 minutes outside the HOA, was already packed. Folding chairs lined the fences. Residents arrived in droves, many wearing homemade shirts supporting Lisa. One kid even painted a cardboard sign that read, "The Mustang stays." Across the lot, a smaller but louder group rallied behind Chadwick, mostly his friends and a few younger home members still believing style outweighed substance. Chadwick stood by his rented Camaro like it was a throne. His gold-trimmed racing suit, branded headband, and a fake sponsorship banner tied to the hood that read "HOA Royalty" completed the look. If it was a joke, it was a committed one. If it wasn't, it was even worse. Lisa arrived fashionably late, not out of arrogance, but to let the pressure settle on Chadwick first. She drove the Mustang herself, no trailer this time. The engine echoed across the tarmac like a war cry. The car gleamed under the sunlight, every curve catching reflections like it was alive. She wore a black racing suit with red trim, her hair tied back in a braid that said she meant business. No waving, no posing. She parked, stepped out, and handed her helmet to the pit crew with a nod. Her only words to Chadwick were, "You know the rules. You lose, you scrub." He tried to laugh it off. "Better save that joke for after the tears," he muttered, but his voice cracked just a bit. The track owner greeted both drivers and confirmed the terms publicly. 1 lap warm-up, 3 laps race. No shortcuts, no interference. Lisa would start from pole position, a courtesy usually given to professionals. Chadwick didn't know what that meant until he Googled it right there on his phone. His followers circled him with phones ready, but the smirks were thinner today. They'd seen the videos, they'd seen the memes. Part of them knew no luxury car could buy the kind of mastery Lisa had in her fingertips. Engines fired. Lisa's Mustang rumbled like a beast awakened. The Camaro barked loudly but unevenly, like it was trying to prove something it couldn't. The starter waved them forward. 1 warm-up lap. Tires squealed softly as they loosened up. Lisa kept it tight and composed. Chadwick floored it too soon, trying to show off. He took a corner wide and nearly clipped a cone. His friends cheered anyway. Then the warm-up ended. The starter raised his hand. The flag dropped, and just like that, it was on. The Mustang leapt forward like it had been waiting months for this. Lisa hugged the inside line, tires gripping perfectly. Chadwick's Camaro surged ahead on the straightaway, but when the first curve came, he hesitated. Lisa didn't. She swung through the turn like muscle memory, tires dancing just shy of the red zone. She passed him before he even realized what happened. From the bleachers, the crowd erupted. By lap 2, she was already 5 car lengths ahead. By the final turn of the third lap, by the time Lisa crossed the finish line, she had doubled Chadwick's lead. The only sound louder than her engine was the roar of the crowd. Chadwick came in 7 seconds later, red-faced and struggling to keep the wheel steady. He climbed out of the car slowly, his phone crew hanging back. The silence from his side was deafening. No filter or Reddit could mask what had just happened. He'd been humiliated, and the worst part was, everyone saw it coming except him. Lisa didn't gloat. She didn't need to. She stepped out, handed her helmet back, and said coolly, "You got guts. I'll give you that, but guts aren't gears." Then, turning to the crowd, she added, "Someone bring him a bucket and sponge. That's the real work." The terms of the bet were announced on the whole live stream. Chadwick would wash every car in the community for 4 weekends on camera wearing whatever outfit Lisa picked. She chose a fluorescent yellow vest with giant reflective lettering that read Mustang Maintenance in Comic Sans. The internet loved it. The first washing session pulled twice the viewers of the race itself. He scrubbed in shame while home members filmed from every angle, crafting slow-motion edits and reaction videos. Someone added sad violin music, Someone else dubbed Lisa's race footage with fighter jet sounds. The fallout hit the whole leadership like a brick through stained glass. The board meeting that followed was packed. Residents demanded accountability. Lisa presented a timeline of every harassment event backed by security footage, social media clips, and the original cease and desist letter. One by one, board members distanced themselves from the president and her son. When the vote came to remove her from office, only one vote opposed it, hers. Her resignation was announced that same evening. Chadwick's name was quietly removed from the youth committee. The new president issued a formal apology to Lisa and Nate. He also passed a new rule requiring all HOA complaints to undergo double approval, a policy quickly dubbed Karen-proofing the rules. Lisa never asked for special treatment after her win, but respect followed her everywhere. Neighbors who once avoided her now offered driveway spots for her Mustang. Kids asked her to speak at career day. A local mechanic asked if he could apprentice under her on weekends. She agreed, but only if he could change brake pads blindfolded, which he took as a challenge. Nate watched the changes with amusement. Of course, he was proud of her, but what he loved most was how she never changed for anyone. Not the hoe, not the board, not some teenage loudmouth with a phone and a fantasy. She stayed grounded, fierce but fair. Chadwick served out his full sentence of car washes. By the second week, he stopped pretending it was a joke and simply did the work quietly and thoroughly. It didn't erase what he'd done, but it shifted the tone. On the last day of his punishment, while scrubbing down a dusty SUV, he walked up to Nate and said, "Your wife's car, it's insane." "I didn't know, I really didn't." Nate didn't say anything at first, then he nodded and replied, "That's the thing, kid. You don't know what people have been through, but sometimes, you learn the hard way." Chadwick offered to help clean the Mustang as a gesture. Lisa allowed it. He didn't say much during the process. He just worked and asked a few quiet questions. She answered a few technical questions quietly. It was peaceful, almost redemptive, something that didn't need to be filmed or shared. The neighborhood had found a new rhythm, not one based on power plays or entitlement, but on mutual respect and lessons learned the hard way. When the final sponge was wrung out and the hose coiled away, Lisa looked over the gleaming red of her Mustang and smiled. Not because she'd won, but because she'd made a point without losing herself. The car stayed. The chaos passed. In the rearview mirror, all that remained was the clean glimmer of pride and maybe, just maybe, a little humility. The quiet that followed wasn't just the end of a feud. It was the start of something new. With Chadwick's ego officially deflated, and his mother no longer holding the hoe gavel, the neighborhood began to breathe like it hadn't in years. Tension loosened. Neighbors started talking beyond the usual forced greetings. Laughter echoed again from front lawns. Someone even organized a block party, the first in over 5 years. Lisa didn't show up as a celebrity or a victor. She arrived with her Mustang parked nearby, 2 folding chairs, and a crock pot full of her legendary barbecue beans. When a couple of dads crowded her, asking for racing tips, she laughed and said, "First tip, don't let a 17-year-old drive your ego." The race hadn't just shifted perceptions and reset the rules. The new HOA president, Terry, a former engineer who valued logic over drama, worked with Lisa to draft a new section of the HOA code. It focused on protecting property rights and preventing abuse of authority. They called it the Fair Access and Conduct Clause, but locals gave it another name, the Convertible Clause, a quiet nod to everything that had happened. Even Lisa admitted the name had a nice ring to it. The rule ensured no property, vehicle or otherwise, could be requisitioned or targeted by community leadership without a due process hearing, full transparency, and a member vote. It introduced a formal complaint appeal process and required every board member to complete annual ethics training. Lisa offered to teach the first session, and everyone agreed. The Mustang itself became more than just a car. It turned into a symbol, a gathering point, and surprisingly, a unifier. Neighbors who'd never spoken now chatted beside it. Kids asked to take pictures, treating it like a museum piece. Lisa happily obliged, sometimes lifting the hood and walking them through the engine like it was a living thing. One Saturday morning, a shy 10-year-old girl with big glasses and an even bigger curiosity stood silently beside the car, eyes wide. Lisa knelt down and asked, "Want to hear how she sounds?" The girl nodded without a word. Lisa started the engine. The girl's grin was so wide it looked like her face might split in two. She didn't stop talking about it for days, according to her dad, who later dropped off a thank you note and a homemade apple pie. Lisa didn't gloat or change. She still wore grease-stained jeans around the house and cursed when she dropped a wrench, but something in her head softened. She'd always been confident, but now there was a stillness, like she'd faced down a hurricane and realized she didn't need to raise her voice to quiet it. Nate noticed the change, too. There was a calm in her smile, like someone who knew exactly what she was worth and no longer had to prove it, and not to anyone, not even herself. Chadwick didn't disappear, but he did change. After finishing his community car wash sentence, he stopped filming everything. He returned the Range Rover and started driving a much older sedan. Rumor had it his parents cut back on his privileges to remind him what reality felt like, whether punishment or course correction. It worked. One afternoon, he approached Lisa while she was checking the Mustang's suspension. No cameras, no followers, just him. "I was a jerk," he said plainly. "I didn't understand. I didn't get why it mattered so much, but I think I do now." Lisa didn't say anything at first. She just looked at him for a long moment, then nodded once. "Good," she said. "Now what matters is what you do next." The following weekend, Chadwick showed up at the garage, sleeves rolled up, toolkit borrowed from his dad in hand. He didn't ask for a selfie or clout. He asked to learn. Lisa, with a kind of grace only earned through grit, told him to grab a stool. That afternoon, he helped change oil, swap brake pads, and inspect a rear axle. He didn't complain once. When he left, Lisa turned to Nate and said, "He might still be annoying, but at least now he knows which end of a socket wrench to use. Wrench to hold." The story caught one last wave of attention when a motorsports magazine picked it up. They called it the Mustang Showdown and featured Lisa in a full spread, half about her career, half about the neighborhood feud that turned into a community revival. The photo showed her leaning against the Mustang, arms crossed, grease smudged on her forearms, wearing a grin that said she didn't need anyone's approval. The HOA even framed a copy and hung it in the clubhouse. Right next to it was a new plaque listing the HOA's updated community values. The final line read, "Entitlement has no parking space here." A few weeks later, one morning, Lisa asked Nate to help her with something unusual. They walked to the back of the property, to an unused patch of land that had once been a tangled mess of weeds and junk. Lisa gestured around, a small notebook in hand. "I've been thinking," she said. "I want to build a real garage here, a full bay, maybe a lift, a place where local kids can learn what a real engine looks like. No judgment, no politics, just tools, time, and truth." Nate smiled. "You thinking non-profit?" She grinned back. "I'm thinking redemption, one spark plug at a time." By the end of the month, plans were underway. Donations poured in from neighbors and fans. A local hardware store offered discounted materials. Volunteers signed up to help lay the foundation. Even Terry, the new HOA president, showed up with a wheelbarrow and 3 gallons of paint. Lisa didn't want to change the world, she just wanted to make her corner of it better. As Nate watched her talk shop with 3 teenagers clutching clipboards, asking about torque specs, he knew she already had the Mustang. Of course, it remained front and center. It didn't need to win another race or soak up any spotlight. It just needed to be exactly what it had always been, fierce, beautiful, and unapologetically hers. Every time she turned the key and the engine growled to life, it was a reminder, not just of speed or victory, but of identity, of power handled with grace, and of the idea that sometimes the most meaningful wins don't come from crossing a finish line, but from showing someone how to rebuild what they thought was broken. One evening, just as the sun dipped below the rooftops, Chadwick walked up the driveway. He carried a wrapped box, unsure and hesitant. Without much ceremony, he handed it to Lisa. "For the garage, if it's not too late." Inside was a brand new torque wrench, engraved with the words, "Earned, not given." Lisa held it for a moment, then nodded slowly. "You're learning," she said. He smiled just a little and walked off down the driveway as the lights flickered on. Nate stood beside her, arms crossed, watching the shadows lengthen. "You think this will hold?" he asked. Lisa looked out over the neighborhood. The Mustang, The blueprints spread across the workbench. "It'll hold," she said, "because this time, we built it right." And with that, the engine turned over one more time. Not just a sound, but a promise. Some things can't be taken, they have to be understood, and if you're lucky, maybe even shared.